The film begins with the voice of the elder Mufasa, narrating to Simba the timeless concept of the circle of life. In the Pride Lands, King Simba addresses his subjects, announcing that something extraordinary is on the horizon. He then calls out to Nala, who awaits him in a tranquil oasis. Before departing, Simba entrusts his daughter Kiara to the care of Timon and Pumbaa, cautioning them not to share any wild tales with her. However, the moment Simba leaves, they launch into a comically exaggerated retelling of the Battle of Pride Rock, claiming they were the heroes who defeated and even devoured Scar. Their storytelling is interrupted by Rafiki, who arrives to share a more meaningful tale with Kiara. The story of her grandfather, Mufasa. As a young cub, Mufasa lived with his mother Afia and father Masego among a small community of animals. Afia speaks to him about Mailele, meaning eternity, a paradise they hope to one day call home. Just then, rain begins to fall. What starts as a blessing after a long drought quickly turns dangerous, as rising waters cause a massive flood. In a desperate attempt to save Mufasa, Masego races through the chaos. But when an elephant crashes into a dam, the force sweeps Mufasa away from his parents, setting the stage for the journey ahead. Mufasa spends several days adrift on a log, eventually reaching a riverbank where he encounters another young cub named Taka. When two crocodiles attempt to attack, Taka bravely pulls Mufasa to safety. Moments later, they are discovered by Taka's mother, Eshe, who sternly warns her son against befriending a stray. However, Taka persuades her to allow Mufasa to come home with them. Upon arriving at Taka's home, Mufasa is greeted with hostility by Taka's father, Obasi, who immediately ridicules him for being an outsider. Though Eshe defends Mufasa, Obasi declares that he must prove himself by racing Taka to the dead tree and winning, or face being eaten. During the race, Taka, noticing Mufasa falling behind, slows down and lets him win, allowing Mufasa to stay. However, Mufasa is made to live with Eshe and the other lionesses, while Taka is pleased to finally have someone he can consider a brother. As the years pass, Mufasa and Taka grow inseparable. Despite their bond, Obasi continues to belittle Mufasa and warns Taka that his loyalty will one day be his downfall, potentially costing him his place as heir to the throne. Meanwhile, Mufasa remains close to Eshe, who has grown to love him as her own son. Still, he carries a deep yearning to reunite with his real family. Later, the Pride is ambushed by two white lions from a mysterious and hostile group known only as the Outsiders. As chaos erupts, Mufasa leaps into action to protect Eshe, while Taka, overcome with fear, flees the scene. Mufasa engages in a fierce battle with one of the attackers, Sachu, ultimately defeating and fatally wounding him. The second lion retreats. Taka is left overwhelmed with guilt over his cowardice, but for the first time, Obasi expresses genuine respect for Mufasa's bravery and for saving Eshe. Determined to respond, Obasi dispatches a scout to pursue the outsiders. The scout follows the retreating lion to their leader, Kiros, who rules with his two formidable sisters, Aqua and Amara. Upon discovering that his son, Saichu, has been left for dead, Kiros is consumed with rage and orders the surviving lion to be torn apart by his own warriors. The scout hurries back with dire news. The outsiders have a force twice the size of Obasi's Pride, and they're marching toward them. The very next day, Kiros and his Pride descend upon Obasi's territory. Outmatched, Mufasa and Taka are forced to flee, leaping over a waterfall to escape. A white lion pursues them, but the two manage to survive and press on, determined to find Milele, the Promised Land. As they journey onward, they're discovered by a lioness named Sarabi, who has been silently tracking them. She is soon joined by her loyal scout, Zazu. Meanwhile, in a nearby region, a younger Rafiki is banished from his monkey tribe due to his unsettling visions. His close friend, Junia, is heartbroken by his exile, but Rafiki remains hopeful about what lies ahead. Rafiki eventually crosses paths with Mufasa and the others, though the lions initially attempt to eat him. After tensions settle, Mufasa speaks privately with Rafiki, still uncertain about trusting the mandrill. However, the two begin to bond, as Rafiki seems to understand the pain and burden Mufasa carries. With a newfound sense of purpose, Mufasa takes the lead, guiding the group toward Milele. Unbeknownst to them, Kiros and the outsiders are hot on their trail, having slaughtered Obasi, Eshe, and the rest of the Pride. Taka begins to develop romantic feelings for Sarabi, but lacking experience with females, turns to Mufasa for advice. Mufasa offers gentle guidance, suggesting he compliment her scent, reminiscent of wildflowers, but despite his efforts, Taka comes across as awkward and unsure around Sarabi. Soon after, Zazu spots the outsiders approaching. In a quick-thinking move, Sarabi triggers a stampede by hurling a beehive onto the ground, sending a herd of elephants into a frenzy. During the chaos, she is knocked down and nearly trampled, but Mufasa rushes in and shields her from harm. After narrowly escaping both the stampede and the outsiders, Mufasa tries to give Taka the credit for saving Sarabi in an effort to boost his confidence. The group retreats to the safety of a snowy mountain range, carefully concealing their tracks to prevent the outsiders from following. That night, Sarabi confides in Mufasa that she knows he was the one who truly saved her, and she also recognizes the floral scents he once mentioned, flowers from her homeland. A romantic bond begins to form between them. However, Taka witnesses their growing closeness and feels deeply betrayed by Mufasa. Fueled by jealousy and resentment, Taka seeks out Kiros and the outsiders, forging a secret alliance with them to bring Mufasa down. Eventually, the group reaches Milele, a breathtaking paradise just as Mufasa had always dreamed. But their peace is short-lived. Kiros and his pride have tracked them, thanks to subtle clues intentionally left behind by Taka. When Mufasa confronts him, Taka justifies his actions by claiming that Mufasa has stolen everything that was rightfully his. After a brief clash with Karos, Mufasa realizes the only path forward is unity. He sets out to rally the animals of the valley, urging them to stand together against the threat of the outsiders, even as some accuse him of bringing danger to their once peaceful land. Mufasa tumbles into a cave, with Kiros close behind in pursuit. Meanwhile, the lionesses, led by Sarabi, launch a fierce counterattack against the outsiders. Inside the cave, Taka finds Mufasa and Kiros locked in combat. In a moment of redemption, Taka leaps in front of a blow meant for Mufasa. Kiros' strike lands across Taka's face, leaving him with the distinctive scar that will define him forever. Outside, chaos erupts as the ground beneath Aqua and Amara begins to collapse from the stampede of larger animals, sending the two outsider lionesses plummeting to their deaths. Mufasa and Kiros are swept into a raging river, where Kiros is ultimately crushed by a falling boulder and pulled into the depths. Mufasa struggles underwater, and for a moment, Taka hesitates, caught between resentment and duty, but ultimately pulls Mufasa to safety. The gathered animals, witnessing his bravery and leadership, begin to see Mufasa as their rightful king. Though hesitant to accept such a title, Mufasa is persuaded by Rafiki, who reminds him that he united them in the face of chaos. One by one, the animals bow in respect. Zazu demands that Taka be exiled for his betrayal, but Mufasa, showing mercy, chooses forgiveness. However, he refuses to call him by his former name. Taka accepts this and declares he will now be known as Scar, wearing the name as a symbol of his past. Soon after, Mufasa is joyfully reunited with his mother, Afia, who confirms the passing of his father, Masego. Now surrounded by a new family, Mufasa climbs to the peak of Pride Rock and releases a thunderous roar, signaling a new beginning. In the present, Kiara tells Rafiki she wishes she had met Mufasa. Rafiki gently assures her that Mufasa lives on within her. She looks to the sky and lets out a mighty roar, echoed in the clouds by the spirit of Mufasa himself. At that moment, Simba and Nala return with Kiara's newborn brother, Kion. With love and reverence, Kiara begins telling Kion the story of a great king,